Hello everyone, welcome to Old Bluff. It's been a while since I've done a video. I had issues with rain and rock in doing my cabin build, trying to get the footings done. So while everything's drying out, I thought I'd get up at the sawmill and cut some of the logs that I'm going to be using, the finished logs for the walls. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. We've got a profile that's 6 3/4 thick, and when I plane that down, put the hand hewed effect on it, I'm going to get it close to 6.5 inches thick, so that standard 6-inch jambs for doors and windows will work. Just put them right in the wall and they should work fine. And I'm going to have 10 3/4 inch tall logs, and probably put a 2-inch high density polystyrene foam in between each layer, and then come back and chink over that. I think that's going to work out pretty good. I've talked with several people about it, gotten their ideas and comments, so I think that's what we've decided on, to do that once the rain lets up a little bit. But I wanted to talk about what we're going to be doing on the hand hewed effect, and I'll do a separate video about that later on. I'm going to be doing some light charring on the logs. You'll see all of that, a particular stain on the inside and gray stain on the outside. I want the building to look old once it's completed, so you'll see what we got with that once we get going with it. I finally got my clear vinyl up on the side of the sawmill to cover the open area that I had. I left a little opening there so I can get my diesel nozzle through there to fuel up the sawmill. This has worked out pretty good. It stopped a lot of the sawdust, light sawdust, from going inside. Here you see an interior color on the log. On that right side it's not charred. On the left it is charred, just barely. Then we do that hand hewed effect. Now you see the exterior log, it's going to be a darker gray. It was a golden oak for the interior. I'm going to round the top and bottom edges to give it a natural look on the profile before I do the hand hewed effect. But as far as having everything uniform, hopefully this is going to help me having everything the same size when I do the notching on the sides at the corners there. So here we're loading up a log. Got the log turner that I use, and I wanted to show that. When I roll a log up, a lot of times I'll use it to help pull the log up onto the sawmill. You see it's raised up there behind it, and it really helps to pull a log in. And this is a pretty uniform log here, but some of the irregular shapes, you can actually use it and then just barely bump the chain to roll it on in a little bit more. So that helps in a regard there as far as getting it up on the mill and getting it over closer. Here I'm getting everything set up for the first cut. Check the pith on it, but there's not a lot of taper on it. It's just a little bit of a bow, a little wobble in it. You see on the top there. It's not enough really to worry about after I got going with it. I'm going to get it all set up and make the first cut. Now out of this log I'm going to get 4 finished logs, plus I'm getting, I think, 5 2x6s that I'm going to be using for rafters, and a couple of 1x10 boards that I'm going to be using for live edge siding on the gable ends. This is a very small cabin, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, Jack and Jill setup. And I'm probably going to show that floor plan here somewhere in this video towards the end probably. I'm going to offer these plans for sale for folks. It's what we're going to do with it is do a little Airbnb. I plan on building 2 or 3. We'll see how this one goes, but as far as the floor plan for it, it's something that I had in mind for several years and just did a little changes to it. When you see it, hopefully it'll help people out there, and others will want to share in the experience with it, I guess you could say. But I think it's going to work out pretty good in that regard as far as Airbnb or long-term rental, just whatever your situation might be. I'm just trying to do something for the golden years because they're upon me. So I need to get something done. I think this was about a 30-inch log, 31 inches overall, 16.6 on the length. So it's perfect size for getting these logs out. Anytime you can get multiple outs, different things. It took me about, I guess, start to finish, about 2 hours to completely cut the log up, get all the trash out of the building, get all the finished pieces out, plus moving the cameras. I was moving cameras left and right, it seemed like. But, you know, that's all part of it. The logs that I've got here, I've had these for probably about 1.5 years or so. So that bark's falling off. I got a big pile of bark all in the sawmill. I'll get all that cleaned up later. I've got about 6 or 8 of those similar size logs to cut up for the cabin. What I figured on the cabin, this cabin is 23 by 30, and it's going to take probably about 65 or 70 logs. I have to piece a few here and there, which shouldn't be a problem. I'm going to do a Dutchman joint, I think, for when I join any logs that don't make a full course. I've got doors front and back and windows on the sides, so I'll have some piecing here and there between those, but several, probably about 6 or 8 courses are going to be full courses on each side. See, I've got that flipped up now. We're going to cut the last sections of flitches off. And I set up on my Accuset before I got going. I know that my finished log widths are 6 3/4, so I went ahead and programmed a pattern in on Accuset for 6 3/4 and one for 10 3/4. It's actually 10/21/32. Anyway, that way when I get to a section a cant section that's left over, I can just go into the pattern mode and cut out. You'll see that coming up shortly. I'll cut out what I need for the finished logs, and that's going to let me, once it sets up for those, I'll be able to come out of that, go into auto up, cut out 2 inches, and come back and edge those offcuts for the rafters that I'm going to be using. I'll have to come back and edge them one more time because they'll be set at 6 3/4, so I'll edge them back out to 6 inches. Same way on the other side of the logs, the 10 3/4, and I may even leave them full because it's going to lap anyway, but I don't want them kicking out. I'll probably cut them all similar widths, that way it doesn't kick out more at the laps on one side, piece siding, than the others, having a uniform. But anyway, when I get in a situation where I'm cutting the 10 3/4 in the pattern mode, I'll have a couple of pieces of siding that come off, and you'll see that later on. I'll be able to come back and edge one side of that because I'm going to leave it live edge on one side, and so I'm actually getting a little bit of everything I need out of these logs. It's just a good size on these logs. I've got, you see the laser was on there. I've got that one set up. I think I'm cutting out a 2x on this that I'll come back and edge all that wane off of and get a 2x6 out of the center. I believe is what I'm doing on this one. So I have very little waste with this log. Some of the wane that I trimmed off to get the 2x6s I'm using, they're going to be for rafters, and I want to have them with as little wane as possible. And you'll see the floor plane coming up later, but I'm going to have trusses on the inside that I build, and these 2x6s will be up over those with tongue and groove 1x6s underneath, so that it'll look like those 1x6s are sitting on top of the trusses that are inside. Here you can see I made a small cardboard pattern just to help me decide where I need to be to try and get most of that wane out of it. I'm going to come back though and round the edges on the upper and lower sides, inside and out, on these logs, that'll give me a uniform round where the chinking will be. But when I do the hand hewed effect, it's going to make it look more, I've done a small sample of it, it's going to make it look more historically accurate. But when we do the chinking line, it'll look a little more uniform, is what I've got in mind with that. Well, it looks like on this one now I'm cutting out the 2-inch. I can't remember exactly what it is, but we'll see when I pull it off the sawmill. I believe that's a 2-inch section that I'm going to come back and edge out for the 2x6s. I believe we'll know here in just a second. It took me several days to make this video, so I'm having to recall everything that I did along the way. Now I sped this up while I'm cutting so the video wouldn't be so long. It started off as an hour. Didn't feel like people would want to sit for a whole hour just to watch me cut up a tree. But as far as actual speed on it and time, I had about 2 hours in cutting everything up, getting all the mess out. So you can see here I'm going to be using the clamp dog to help me slide that section off. I'm just a little 165 pounder, and it's pretty tough when you go pushing on these things. So that's full 6 3/4 piece. That's what I was thinking. So I'm going to come back, edge that off, and get a log out of the center of it. Couldn't remember exactly which way it went. And I'll come back with that other piece and get a couple of 2x6s off each side, and then get 3 finished logs out of it. So I'll be getting 4 finished logs out of this one log. So the other 2x I had already taken off, and it's sitting over on, I think, on the top of those other logs over there. And we'll see it come back up because I finished this log completely, get it all cut up. These particular size logs work out good, 30-inch or so, to get enough out of it for the time that you spend on it. I'm trying to make them as uniform as I can. You're going to have some variations in it, but getting all the separate pieces out really helps with it. And I'm taking it all, I've prepared a place under my sheds where I can stack everything out, let it dry for a couple of months. Probably going to be about 2 months. As I said, I've had an issue with rocks in the footings and where we put the septic tank in. Now we've had rain, gosh, going on a week now. It seems like every day, which is good, but it's, you know, holding me up from finishing my footings. I can't do much more with them, as muddy as they've been. Everything's real soft. I got to do a little more finish work on them to get them in better shape, and I'll get them poured and get started on the foundation. Once I get the foundation in and pour the slab, I'm going to do a concrete slab on top of this because I had so much rock that we pulled up. I'm going to backfill the foundation with this rock because I have no other way to get rid of it. I'd have to haul it to the landfill or dig a hole and bury it. But, it's all pretty good size for using it as backfill, so I think that's what I'm going to do with it. Here I'm getting a 1-inch piece of siding off this side to get it down to the 6 3/4 mark for cutting finish logs out of. So I'll come back and edge this on one side for my gable end siding. I think I get 2 or 3 pieces of the siding, I think 2 pieces out of this log. I wound up getting about, I think, 6 2x6s, 2 pieces of siding and 4 logs, so finished logs, so it worked out pretty good for just one tree. I'm going to probably need probably cut about 60 2x6s because there's a few that I'll need to cull. I noticed I've got some big knots close to the edge, so they won't grade out very well. Just wouldn't want to use those for a rafter, but I'm just going to go ahead and cut some extra to have in case I need to cull one, or if I get something that bows up too bad to use or whatever. You just don't know. I've got everything stacked out good, but when it's drying, you just don't know. These were good straight trees, good and uniform. That's one reason that I held these back. There goes Precious with that stump grapple again. I tell you, that is one handy piece of equipment if you're in the log business. You've got a lot of different things you can use, forks, whatever, but that clamp is really a blessing to have. And also having access to the end of the sawmill. I've had several viewers ask about setup, doing the building, whatever. It's really come in handy having it where you can access that end of the machine, because I can pick up one of these logs by the end and set up on the sawmill if I need to. I normally roll them in, but if I have a weird shaped log that's hard to handle, won't roll or whatever, I can bring it right in that door and set it on the lift arms. I have set smaller ones up on the sawmill. It just comes in real handy for a one-man operation. It just takes a lot of the back work out of it. So I'm getting this one turned up to start slicing my 10 3/4 direction now. Now this is going to be 6 3/4. I've cut that one to 10 3/4, so I'm going up now and setting the 6 3/4 pattern, and I'll come back and clip whatever is left, clip it off. I think I get a 3/4 inch board out of that, and I'll just put it somewhere and stop. But from then on, we're just stepping down with the pattern, so I'll get 3 finished logs out of this particular one. Then I'll come back and edge out that slab that's sitting on the lift arms. I think I'd probably had, if I hadn't had to move the cameras, I'd probably had it close to an hour and a half in cutting this tree up. You see it dropped right back down to where I cut again when I hit, because I raised up. Now I hit again and it drops down that next 6 3/4. Now I have to peel that one off because I won't have enough throat on the sawmill to clear it. So I have to pull one off individually and carry it out, put it on the stack. Now I'm cutting that first one off. There are some knots in these pine trees, but that's what gives the log character for me. I've tried to put the knots towards the edges, but I don't think it's going to matter that much with the hand-hewed look that I'm going to be doing, the charring, and trying to make it look old, because they're going to check, they're going to have defects here and there, but that's just what makes it look older in my mind. Now I'll hit again, we'll come down, that'll leave me 6 3/4 on the bed there. So that'll be 3 that I get out of that one section. You can see here I'm having to take that one off because I'm not going to have enough clearance in the throat. It's only got, I think it's 12 1/4 inches between the drawback arm bracket and the blade itself. So I'm having to peel this one off there just to make that next cut. See that attachment I put, there's 2 forks up on the top arm of that grapple. I've got a flat piece of channel iron that I put on hinges. I can prop it up or bring it down so that it clamps straight across the finished lumber. The 2 points there, they're perfect for grabbing a raw log, but when you're working with your finished boards, that flat plate doesn't mar things up, doesn't scratch it or put little dents in it. I use it. as far as getting these logs graded, I'm having to go through that with the jurisdiction in charge here, the building inspectors. I've gotten in touch with Timber Products Inspections. I think they've got an office in Kennesaw here in Georgia. Got quotes from them what it'd take to come out, grade the logs for me. Anything over 3 inches thick, you don't have to worry about moisture level, using it for log home or structural material. But anything less than 3 inches, I'll have to abide by. It's probably going to be just the S dry. It's just a surface dry. I think it's just an air dry amount. I'll just have to see how that goes. I may have to buy 2x6s, I don't know, but I'm going to have them cut and see what the grader says anyway. But I'd love to be able to use them. I like to use everything that I can on this. You can see here I'll be taking this out, putting it under the shed. It's an air dry it's probably going to be a couple of 3 months. So I'm going to pour the concrete for the slab and let it cure out for about a month before I start putting heavy weight on it. I'll have to rig up some sort of a manual crane, or I haven't decided exactly. Once I get to that point, I'll figure it out as far as getting some of the timbers. I'm going to be using 4x8 timbers for the trusses on the inside. And they'll be spaced at 7.5 feet center to center on those. I think I'm going to do a queen truss. That's what I've drawn in the plans. And I'll put a copy of the floor plan up here shortly and let you take a look at that. I'm going to probably offer them for sale, probably $100, something like that, and they're adequate enough to get you a permit. You can make changes in them as you want to. I did not draw the porches. I'm going to do a small, probably a 8x10 front porch with a shed roof, which you could do a gable. It'd probably look better, but I'm just going to stay old school with this thing, quick as I can. And on the back, I'm probably going to do a 10x16 back porch. It's got each bedrooms are on the back wall, and each bedroom has an exterior door going out to that back porch area. You'll see that. I mean, just imagine if I didn't have that grapple, how I was going to handle all these logs. It's just a blessing having that thing, because it just gently grabs them. Of course, it'll clamp down hard if you hit that button and come down on it. But I just work it down to it, and having the pilot controls on the skid steer, you can just move in very small, smooth increments. It's really worked out good. You can see my 2x6s. I've gotten started on those over on the right on the other side of the storage shed. So I've been working on this a little bit at a time between customers and working on the footings of the building. Now it looks like that's the 1x that I had that came off the top of that. See how I'm coming down slow on that so I won't mar it up. Or I have snapped 3/4 inch boards. You come down too hard, it'll pop them. But once it gets a hold on them, it's got them. Here you see what I'm using for the gable ends, this live edge slab siding. I think it's going to look pretty good. I can just keep one live edge on it and edge off the other side to keep it square. It'll be nice and uniform. That's what I've got in mind here. You see I'll have to finish this live edge out on that one, but it's not a problem with some of the grinders I've got. Here you can see Brutus is taking over a little couch that I made out of some of the big rock that I had digging up. I mean, I pulled up some big ones. He really likes that thing. He'll go down there and take him a nap every now and then. He hadn't been up the sawmill much lately. He keeps sneaking out on me. Don't you, boy? So here I'm coming back in and grabbing that offcut that I had, come back to edge it, get what I can 2x6s, and it'll leave me one more finished log on it. So like I say, these logs have really worked out good size-wise for what I'm doing. The wane that's left in them is really minimal. A few of the 2x6s that I mentioned, they've got some knots on the edges. I think there were about 3 of them, but I've already accumulated probably 21, I think, of the 2x6s that I'm going to use for rafters. And I had figured up, I think I'll need like 50 or 55 of them to do this building. So, you know, I'm well on my way with it. I've probably got about 6 more of these logs to cut up from my finished logs. There I'm getting that 2x that I had taken off the first cut, bring it back, set it on the lift arms to edge out what I can get from it in 2x6s as well. Like I say, I wasted very little on this, so it's worked out good. Just a handful of little edges that I wound up with. I'm going to get this set up, trim off that wane that's all across the top there, and leave myself enough to get one finished log out of the center. See, I'll kick on the laser there now to try and set it to where that wane's out of there. This slab here is 6 3/4 wide, so what 2x6s I get out of it, I'll obviously have to come back and edge back to 6 inches. But it really has worked out good. Cutting the little pattern of the cardboard that I did helped me out too. I was able to actually visualize what I can get, where to start on the log, where to try to avoid the wane that was in it on the outside edges. So that has really come in helpful. And I've not really used the pattern mode on the Accuset that much, but it really came in handy on this, leaving you what you wanted to sitting on the bed rails. Really come in handy. You can use it in conjunction, set down to what you know is going to work. Then I go into auto up and start clipping out 2-inch boards, and then I come back once I make the first cut. I'll auto up and cut 1 or 2, whatever I've got, switch to auto down, then just step down and come back to that same dimension, and I'm right back in pattern mode then. So it takes all the guesswork out of it. So here I'm probably going to flip this and get to the other side where I can take off what I need of it. As far as 2x6s, you can see that wane that's left on there, so I'll probably trim that off somehow and get rid of it, and get it down to the 6 3/4. No, I believe this is 10 3/4 on this one. It was cut. That's right. It's already at 6 3/4, and that's why I've got to come back and edge these 2x6s again. So I'm cutting it to 10 3/4 now. So you can see I stepped up, and I'm going to take that off, step back down, and that's going to leave me my 10 3/4. I have to remember exactly what I did here. There's several different steps. It's according to which side you're on, what's left of it. But that Accuset really comes in handy if you learn all the little quirks about it. So I'll step down here and get 1 2x6, and that's going to leave me 2. But anyway, it's going to leave me that 10 3/4. I'm kind of excited about getting started on the cabin. It's been a lot to go through with the rocks and all the rain that we've had lately. But like I say, you got to have a little rain every now and then to help everybody's garden. Yeah, I get 2 of them. But that's going to leave me that 10 3/4. So I'll get this, stack it out, come back and edge all these 2x6s, and then that last slab there that's left on the lift arms, I'll edge it out, get what I can out of it. I think I get 2 2x6s out of it as well. I cut 2-inch thick stickers to go between these logs as I put them up, because I know I've got to come back when I get these graded. I'll have to come back with my forks to pick them off, and that should leave me enough room to slide in between each of the layers of logs, because there's no way I'll be able to pick up this whole stack of finished logs. I'll be taking them off probably 4 or 5 at a time. Precious is a go-getter, but I'm not going to ask too much of her. I don't want to conk out on me. Speaking of that, I had a starter go out the other day. It was sitting up there at the back of the sawmill I was running. And normally to change the starter out, you'd raise the lift arms and raise the cab where you can get to the back of the starter. Well, I was dead in the water. My starter just went out completely. So I had to do it all from underneath and outside at the engine compartment. I mean, it was, I think, 4.5, 5 hour job. Should have only taken an hour. But it's just one of those things, you just have to roll your sleeves up, go with it when it happens. I mean, I was just dead in the water without Precious. I was right in the middle of cutting some other logs up. Here you can see I've thrown those 2x6s up. I'm going to edge them down to 6 inches. And I threw all the wane that was left. The bottom side of these boards were straight, but all the wane that's left, I threw it up on both boards. That way I knew I'd be cutting it off. Just throw it in the burn pile, which is growing out there. We've got the burn ban going now until October 1st. I don't know. A match might accidentally get thrown in that pile before then, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But you got to abide by the law. You know? So these are some of the 2x6s that I'm bringing out stacked there. I think I wound up off of 2 logs. No, it's 3 logs that I cut up. 21 2x6s so far. And like I say, I've only got to have like 55 or so. I'll probably cut 60. But I had some 2x6s from another couple of logs that I had done. These storage sheds have worked out good. They were quick and cheap to build. I just did them myself. Stood the uprights up and made little brackets that I screwed on to hold those collar ties for the rafters. Pre-drilled all the holes and just bolted those on. And I had some short 4x6s that I cut for the rafters. Just set those up there and dropped them down to a small bracket that I had put screwed onto the poles there at the ridge line. So everything just set right down, and I just nailed it all into place. This is the last piece coming off. I'm going to edge it out for the 2x6s. That'll get down to, I think I've got 5 or 6 more logs of this size to bring in. I'm going to keep working on this until my footings dry out to get as far along at cutting the logs as I can get, so things will kind of dry out a little bit. I like for them to sit 3 months anyway, get what I can out of them. Weight, obviously they're heavy, but I'm going to probably strap them down. I don't think I'm going to have an issue with it. These are some old logs, but as they start drying, you can't ever tell. I just don't want them to get too far out of line. I'll probably be working from centers once I start notching anyway. I've watched several videos of templates that they use for cutting out the notches. Most of the guys doing that work from the center line of each log anyway, so if you do have any variations in the height, you're still working it out evenly, I guess you'd say, across the log course. I appreciate all the comments that I'm getting from viewers, all the questions. I try to answer them as quick as I can. I hope I'll help people. I get a lot of comments on the lasers. I've sent out several emails in that regard of where to order the parts, the laser brackets and all those things. But I appreciate everybody's comments and suggestions. And if you haven't subscribed already, I would appreciate you considering that. Maybe give us a thumbs up. Definitely hit the notification bell. I never know when the next video is going to come out. I tried to put an image of the floor plan in, but it's a PDF and the editing software would not let me do that. So I'm going to work on that, and I'll get something done for the next video to show you guys a copy of the floor plan. So until next video, you guys take care, be safe. I'm going to get up here and finish edging these out, clean my mess up, take Mama out to eat, I believe. We hadn't gone out and eaten in a while. I thought we might do that this evening. As always, thanks for watching. Y'all come back and see us.